Welcome. We are here tonight on Talking Bristol with Jillian Gilchrist. Pardon me.
That's okay.
I got stuck there. Jillian Gilchrist. And Jillian is another one of the candidates for First District Congress. She is, challenging a 14-term
Yep.
14-term incumbent, John Larson. She's a Democrat. And she is one of several people who are actually challenging John Larson. So welcome, Jillian.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you for having me.
it's wonderful you're here. We've had Luke Bronin on. We've had Ruth Fortune. At one point, I imagine we'll have John Larson. And then after we get through the primary, we'll see who the candidates are.
Okay.
And then we'll have both the Republican and the Democratic candidates on our show.
Wonderful.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, right now you serve in West Hartford. You represent West Hartford in the Connecticut legislature as a representative. You've been doing that since 2018.
Yes.
And you have kind of always been involved in some sort of advocacy work, political work.
Yes. So in college, I discovered that there were places called sexual assault crisis centers, and I had just always been horrified by sexual violence. So I began volunteering there and was able to get my first job out of college as the child advocate. And that job taught me I was not made for direct service. So I'm appreciative of those who are. But I was more interested in why was it that I, at the age of 22, with a BA in women's studies and 30 hours of training, was the only person available for these children in that area of the state. And so was looking at systems and discovered that I was interested in policy. And so I went on to work at a number of nonprofits doing advocacy at the state capitol. I was a lobbyist, but for social justice issues.
All right, yes.
And then once I started doing that, I knew I would run at some point. It was kind of like, if they can do it, I can do it.
So does policy translate to politics? Because in the back of my mind there's politics, there's governance. And so what is it? I've been asking people on the show the difference, or how do you distinguish the two in people's minds? Because I think lots of times there's a mishmash, and we might be just mixing some terms up. And I'm just kind of curious what people have to say about that.
Very interesting conversation. I think of it as politics is what is needed to get to the policy. I also, serving in the legislature for 4 terms, I kind of classify there's people who are interested in policy. There are people who are just interested in politics. And then there's people who do both, or again, realize you have to do the politics in order to get to the policy. So for me, the policy is meaningful change through law that can impact people's lives. The politics is the negotiating, the trading, kind of the teams, because right now Republican versus Democrat. And so it's all of that, campaigning, right? There's tons of politics in that. So, but our system is designed that you can't get to the policy without the politics.
Do you think the politics is what prepares someone for policy?
Not at all.
I'm just kind of thinking and trying to grasp that.
Not at all.
You need two different
You
skill
need
sets.
two different skill sets.
Yeah.
And for some people, it never comes. For other people, they are able to do that. I think I have both skill sets. I much prefer policy to politics. But I realize politics to me is like the dynamics in a high school. And I was an observer more so in high school. And so it's kind of, okay, like figuring out different cliques, who's got relationships with who, and how do you move things through that body. So when I'm thinking about the state legislature, the policy, right, is sitting down with advocacy groups and with colleagues and figuring out, okay, here's the issue, and this is the policy that can get us to the solution.
So we've got Bristol.
Yep.
All right. It's you don't represent Bristol, but as a congressperson,
Yep.
you would represent Bristol. It's one of, is it 27
27 towns.
towns that you would be representing? And so, is there anything right now that you're thinking of on the, well, I guess you could talk the state level or the national level that affects people in Bristol?
Healthcare.
So healthcare. So how do you break that down? The politics and the,
Sure.
and yes, and the policy.
Great. So I'll take congressional hat.
Okay.
So this is the race I'm running for. There's the politics. So with healthcare, I would like universal healthcare. I want to take profit out of healthcare. As I'm going around to the 27 towns, that is an issue that is impacting everybody. And so the policy piece is figuring out what is the best policy to move us forward. Do we go full steam ahead for a Medicare for all? Do we take an incremental approach? Is it a universal healthcare policy that still engages the insurance companies, but has a lot more regulation and oversight, similar to the state plan that I get to have health insurance through? The politics is figuring out, in the past, when these efforts have been taken to try and pass healthcare reform, who's been opposed, who's been for it, in terms of advocacy groups, legislators, what have been the arguments for and against. And so what are the levers that you can pull to move this issue forward? So the policy, to me, is a lot more wonky. It's like the research and just the research and the understanding what is the best solution. The politics is figuring out the strategy. And sometimes that can get ugly. Other times, though, as you see me lighting up, I'm realizing, I do love parts of it. I love the figuring out the messaging. I love figuring out the advocacy strategy. And some people, I think, might put that in the policy bucket, but that is the politics. Like, how do you get it? How do you get the policy across the finish line is the politics.
So, and constituents.
Yes.
I mean, you represent people.
Yes.
So you are hearing that healthcare, I mean, aside from what's on the front page of newspapers and you hear online, wire services and other online kinds of sources, news sources is what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to, in my mind, think, okay, people are not reading lots of newspapers necessarily. And they're using venues like ours and Bristol Edition, which is an online newspaper, to get this information. So what are critical ways for you to gauge the citizen or constituent needs or wants or desires, and how do you decide when to move forward with something, in both politically and and the policies?
It's interesting. Again, with my experience at the legislature, but then now going out and listening to folks, it can take just one person bringing up an issue. So what's coming to mind is there was a mother in West Hartford whose child unfortunately took his own life. She had had travel insurance, and when they couldn't go on the family trip because this incident took place, the travel insurance said, "Oh, you didn't read the fine print. It doesn't cover suicide." That was enough for me. I'm going to work on that issue. That's pretty messed up. Who in the world would plan for, you don't plan for a suicide.
Right. Yeah. That's just sad.
But then, so that's right. That's one thing. And then there's issues like healthcare that, as I'm going around and speaking with people, regardless of their party affiliation, they are negatively being impacted by healthcare. Family of 3, they pay $3,000 out of pocket. Her toddler had a seizure. They had to pay $2,000 for the ambulance ride. Small business owners in West Hartford, the business is doing well, but they can't afford the health insurance. So she's going to have to leave the business they started. So it's really impacting all these different angles. And then my way of working is I create lists. I'm a list maker, and it's figuring out, like, you can't just work on one thing at a time. There's a lot of issues that impact people.
There's so
and
many
so
things
figuring out,
there,
okay, when to move, how, like which pieces can you move, and just every day chipping away.
So I think this would be informative for people to hear. I mean, how many bills just in Connecticut do you have to deal with each session?
I will get the number. It's close to 500.
Yeah.
And I co-chair a committee,
Mhm.
which I feel privileged to do,
Which is?
Human Services. And we probably alone have about 60 to 70 bills in our committee. And we will have public hearings on those. And then we work those through the process. In the end, we probably get about 15
I was going to
across the
say, in the
finish
end,
line.
15 to get across the
Yeah.
finish line for whatever reason,
Yep.
politics or otherwise.
Yes. The policy might not be ready,
right.
or the politics gets
Yes,
in the way. Yeah.
And so that is continuously going on process here in Connecticut. And we have a how would you say it, a bicameral? Is it not bicameral? Is it what is it, biennial budget?
Yep.
So maybe you can explain a little bit about how that works.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we call it, so it's a 2-year term. So this last term was elected. I'm like, what year is it? Was elected back in 2024, and I served 2025, and now I'm serving 2026. And in 2025, that's our long session. It goes January to June, and that's when we create a 2-year budget. And so this year is our short session from February to May. We are supposed to pretty much just be adjusting the budget, but we can work on a number of issues. Committee chairs are the only ones who can introduce bills that don't have to do with the budget this session. It's interesting because there's so much work to do. It's really, I believe, an antiquated system. It was based on farmers and the agricultural schedule. And so down the road, Connecticut might want to think about going to a full-time legislature, maybe less legislators.
Well,
but
if you have full-time people, you might be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that would take some kind of, you'd have to revise the Connecticut Constitution.
Yes.
And how do you do that?
That can be done a few ways. You need to get a supermajority on a vote in both the House and the Senate. Otherwise, and if you get that, then it will go onto the ballot. And then voters get to make that constitution. They get to vote to change the Constitution. Right. If you can't get the supermajority, we have to vote on it in 2 consecutive legislatures, which means it can't pass. Like we have to wait a year.
Yeah. So how do you keep people's attention on these things? It's especially in this day and age, and with everything that's going on, we can't avoid what's happening on the national level.
Yep.
And then Connecticut has been dealing with that, I think, constructively and fairly well.
Yep.
So how do, with people living the lives that they are living, and having the responsibilities of keeping up with all this other information and voting and everything that goes along with that, what do you do?
So it's meeting people wherever they're at. And so whether that's a town hall or a town hall meeting, or social media is huge, or doing online Zoom conversations, sending out emails. So all these different ways of communicating on lots of different channels on social media. And then it's both elevating an issue you're working on, but also planting the seed about how the process works and not assuming people understand. Often I'll still get, wait, so you represent me where? Like you're in Washington? People sadly, because we really didn't teach it.
Well, I'm a former educator.
Yeah.
And I can't say former, I'm always an educator. I mean, I consider this to be part of education.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder, how do we get to the position we're in?
Yep.
When the people I know were doing their jobs,
Yep.
I was doing my job, and yet something happens where people will come out and all of a sudden there's this disconnect.
Yeah.
So I don't have a solution, but I
what did you teach?
I taught English.
Okay.
And journalism.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think it has to be an ongoing education and not a one and done.
So So on the national level, the role of the Department of Education.
So actually, big in my platform is a huge investment in public education. Both my parents were public school teachers, so I grew up kitchen table conversations about public education. My sister's a public educator. and the public education system got me to where I am. It's also serving in the legislature and hearing from teachers quite often, and then knowing folks in the field. We're not paying them what they need to be paid.
Yeah. Been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
We expect a lot of our schools, which makes sense to me because that's where our kids are all day, but then we need to invest in it. And there's a lot of struggles. Kids have a lot of struggle these days, and we're not paying paraprofessionals either. And then the way I do policy, I would speak to people a lot more well-versed than me, but it does seem to me there needs to be a curriculum update, and figuring out what that is. Again, I would take the lead from others, but we need to change it up.
And you said public school.
Yes.
Yes, public schools. There are a number of other schools out there that compete with public schools. And that's an entirely different kind of conversation. I mean, what kind of support do they get? What do they contribute? Do they detract from or take away from our resources? I may have this right or wrong, but with charter schools, my initial thoughts on charter schools, or what I understood, is they were supposed to be incubators in the public school systems, so where you can try some new things, and then as they work, they would get into the public school systems. But it turns out that was a teacher union initiative.
That's interesting.
So what eventually happened is, again, we're in America. Sports metaphors, we like the competition or whatever, because we believe that works, and I don't think we have a lot of competition in the areas where we need it.
Yep.
And then we have competition in areas that we don't need it. And so I say partial to public education and teachers, and I think that's where most of our students are educated. But the influx of a charter school or different types of schools, it seems like we've created something in education that is not really necessary. It doesn't help. The intent was there.
Yep.
But now it's become something that is taking away from rather than adding to the mix. So do you have that conversation? How do you have that conversation if you don't have a Department of Education? I'm just wondering how that happens, and the role of the Department of Education. And it's just ironic that we have someone from Connecticut who's, doing what she's doing right now, under the guise of following somebody else's initiative to kind of like reduce government.
Yep.
So I can go on for a long time, but this is kind of interesting because you are in the legislature right now, and then you're also running.
Yes.
So there's all kinds of different directions we can go in, but you're taking, but you have decided to challenge an incumbent.
Yes.
He's been there for 14 terms. That's 28 years. He is a likable person. He's been there for a long time. He has strong positions. What made you think that he was someone that you wanted to challenge at this particular time in this moment?
It's a few things. I do have a great deal of respect for him. I don't think he's been engaged in the community for some time. I also think he's been so laser focused on Social Security, which is an important issue, but at the expense of so many other issues that are impacting Connecticut residents. I also think he is part of a system that's broken. And if we want to move this country in a different direction, we can't keep sending back people who think that system works.
So broken. How is it broken?
Money, first and foremost. I believe our country is being run by the wealthy, by corporations. I get we are a capitalist economy, but we have swung so far in the direction of greed that we need to come back. And John Larson and others that he serves with have bought into this idea that having corporations donate to your campaigns through PACs is okay. And it's not, because then you do owe them something, and you will not push for the policies we need to push for.
No matter how well-meaning you are, because
Correct.
it's almost outside of your purview. You can't see it.
You can't
anymore.
see it.
You see, your intentions are good, but this particular dynamic limits your ability to maybe take in all of the issues
Yes.
surrounding something.
And
like,
it's easy for someone in that system to look at others who are critiquing it and be like, well, you don't get it. That's just the way this is.
mhm,
And when someone's been there that long in any role, you hear them say, well, that's just the way we
mhm,
do things.
mhm,
It's not working.
Yeah.
This country's a mess. And so I don't know why we would send back someone who's been there since 1999.
mhm, yeah. Okay, so other issues that you have.
Well, one so tied to this is kind of economic equality, but looking at the fact that corporations in this country are taking advantage of people. So, for example, Walmart. Um, Walmart's CEO to worker pay gap is one of the largest in this country.
Do you have any specifics on that? Do you know how many times it is?
I don't know how many
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
I could circle back.
Yeah.
But it's tremendous.
Yeah.
And then the other piece with Walmart is a majority of their workers have to receive SNAP benefits, supplemental nutrition assistance.
Mhm.
And then Walmart benefits off of people using SNAP at Walmart. So we need to look at and rein in the CEO to worker pay gap. We need to rein in these corporations who actually are being subsidized by all of us. Like why are we paying them through SNAP?
Yeah.
And we need to get to a living wage. So that's a big one. I brought up healthcare, public education, and then kind of near and dear to my heart, just kind of I breathe it, is women's health and safety.
Mhm. I'm just remembering, I worked for the Travelers for a while, and I remember, Ed Budd was there, and, as the CEO of Travelers, I think he was limited to 20 times the amount of money that the lowest wage earner was,
Which is a great policy.
which was just it kinda kept things
Yes.
under
At
control.
some point, you have to
Yeah.
say, like, when is it enough?
Yeah. And taxes is the other issue.
Yes.
We're not very sophisticated when it comes to the idea of taxes.
No.
I mean, that's my general opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not the opinion of a newspaper or anyone else. But we go back to the anecdotal thing. During different times. And during and after World War One, when and during the the post World War Two, World War One, World War Two period. You had the GI Bill, you had investment in people, we had a strong middle class, and the economy and lots of things were kind of humming along for lots of different reasons. But the people who are the head of corporations were in the tax range between 70 and 90%.
Yes.
And I think now, I mean, with people who are making billions of dollars, if you tax them at 90%, they still have they're
going to be okay.
They're going to be okay. But I find so many people who are apologize for that. And I don't understand the mentality. Is it just an American kind of thing? And again, I'm just kind of like going off on this whole thing because there's that education bit again. The fact that you mentioned earlier, healthcare, no one should make a profit off healthcare. I generally, that's what I believe. That's an area where it's sink or swim. You take care of people,
Yes.
and you make sure they're taken care of.
Yes.
But then again, there's the whole idea in our country where they label people. So if you talk that way, you're labeled, and there's no conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It just gets lost in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
which again is a lack of sophistication.
Yes.
And I think people are capable of that.
Yep.
But there's other things that are happening in society that keep them from actually making those determinations.
Which is another role I think a congressperson plays, and that I would like to play, is engaging in these more difficult conversations. So sure, I mean, already a progressive, which I'm fine with, because if progressive means
there's a label.
Progressing
Yes,
and moving towards better things.
And things are better now today than they were
I'm okay
even in the
with that.
50s, even in the 50s in a lot of ways.
Yes. And if access to healthcare means I'm a progressive, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I think the role of a congressperson is being available to the community to have conversations, to unpack what it means to say, take profit out of healthcare. And that is missing. And you can't do it right in a soundbite. You can't do it in
impossible.
A 20-second social media reel. And so that's why, again, like you have to speak to people in as many different ways as possible. But having those conversations is so important.
And so here's the other thing. I mean, the role of a congressperson, we'll say. I won't say a politician. negative connotations,
Yeah.
but a congressperson,
Mhm.
different kind of connotations. So what is their role in educating their constituency? I mean, taking an unpopular position, there's usually a reason behind it. If it's, and if you're looking for good reasons, ones aside from what money pays for,
Yep.
and a lobbyist would, do would present as part of their argument, but one generally that you believe in and that you need to be able to get across. I mean, there is that whole element, and but the fear is that if you do take a position like that, I mean, you may not get reelected.
And that's where I think that's misguided. I do think the role is to educate. So, for example, when um, George Floyd was murdered, West Hartford, where I represent currently and falls into the 27 towns, like every other lawn had a Black Lives Matter
Hmm.
sign. That's an opportunity for me when I'm at the doors to have conversations about housing policy,
Hmm.
about property taxes and schools in our state,
Huge, yeah, yeah.
things that you're told as a politician, don't go there,
Hmm.
don't have those conversations. I That's what we need to be having those
Yeah.
discussions. And I learned early on that you're never going to please everybody, but by being authentically yourself
Hmm.
and engaging in more difficult conversations. Another example is Israel Palestine. It's really hard.
It's a difficult one. It
It-
really is.
and it's worth having the conversation. Will people get mad because I'm not using the language of those who are pro Israel or pro Palestine? Yeah. But people are always going to get upset. And so it's better to be able to engage in the dialogue.
Yeah. Kind of like what we're trying to do here.
Yes. Yes. So thank you for
And
doing this.
we've tried to take away as many labels as possible
Wonderful.
because one of the contentions, and this will be my little pitch for local news, is that we've sacrificed local news.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean, there are operations that were out there, and there are ways to get the support and line up subscribers or members to support a small local newspaper. Um, there, you are talking to people. You have their names.
Mhm.
And what I love about local news is that, when we publish a story, we're here and we're accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we're here. I mean, I might go to the store or get something to eat and run into somebody who read something and they can say, "What were you thinking?
Yeah.
What is that about? Or
Yeah.
why aren't you covering this? Or why aren't you doing the other thing?" And I think the further you get away from, and I think you need both. I don't think
Mhm.
you just can get away with one. You need to have, national newspapers, international newspapers, yada, yada, yada. I mean, that doesn't, you just need information, but you have to realize or I have to realize that on my own part, when I'm reading things at different levels. And what happens on the national level is because you're trying to address the entire nation, you need labels.
Yep.
You need labels. So people take swipes at each other
Mhm.
or they get named. And that doesn't allow for the sophistication that you get when you have a person one-on-one.
Yes.
So it's kind of, how do you do that? But I think, even the way Congress is set up, you get to Congress, you represent a particular district in a state.
Yep.
And so there's a one-on-one that exists there
Yes.
that you bring back to that larger conversation. Um, so it's kind of like, that was my little pitch for local news. And the fact is that, 1,000 people, or subscribing to a publication like this or becoming members can support actual, salaries and editors and things like that. And we do have some legislation coming up in,
Nice.
in Connecticut to try to help that process.
Well,
But go
also,
ahead. Yeah.
what you're saying too, we've talked about the role of a congressperson educating folks, right? But when you're saying, if you're at the grocery and someone's like, why did you cover that? It's the opposite as well. Someone serving in Congress needs to keep connected with their community to understand what they need
Mhm.
and to hear their feedback. And to better understand what are the most pressing issues. And maybe you're in your bubble down in DC
Yeah.
and you're thinking, okay, we're working on this. But there's a whole range of issues you didn't even know were taking place. And so you need to have that connection back and forth.
And I guess what happens is if you're insulated and you have people with money around you, that kind of builds a wall.
Yes.
And no matter what your intentions are,
Yes.
you can't get through that. So something has to happen. And that's the hardest thing, to get people to break that kind of relationship.
Mhm.
I just want a little anecdote. The place in Bristol to be is is Stop and Shop. So I can go to Stop and Shop, and I will literally find people there at different times that are coming back to Bristol to visit,
Okay.
or they're there regularly, but it's, and I don't mean to put down the other stores, but I just know that's where I go.
Yeah.
And typically I'll run into someone there who I haven't seen, and they're just thrilled. It could be an old teacher. It could be an old classmate. It could be one of my kids' friends,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of we have these natural places where
Yes.
people get together. So other issues, and you decide, and statewide, you're here to talk more about what's happening on, and in Congress. Other issues in Congress. I mean, it's, Connecticut has taken, some fairly, let's say, but I'm not going to say strong, clear positions
Mhm.
on ICE,
Mhm.
and what the relationship should be between local police and ICE, and I can, the part of the thing that I think that muddies the water, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that ICE does have a role. We are constantly, it used to be immigration services, where if there was someone who had a problem,
Mhm.
it was their job to locate them and then to deal with them. However, this new manifestation of what's happened, it is built on what looks is a solid premise. It's what we have done. When I was in Little League, one of the fathers was an immigration services person. He used to tell the stories about some of the things that he went through, because they are really good stories.
Yeah.
But that was something he took on. It was dangerous, and he was prepared for that, and he did that kind of thing. But we're seeing something entirely different. So how do you, you can wear both hats, one hat. What are you recommending? What's your stance?
Sure. So I'll first take the congressional hat,
Yeah.
and you nailed it with this manifestation, right? Under Trump, ICE is his paramilitary, um, that is going into blue cities and states to terrorize people. And so I want it abolished. Hard stop. Um, I'm also frustrated, and this is part of that larger problem I'm talking about with who's been in Congress
Mhm.
and how the system has worked or not worked, is that why haven't we fixed the immigration system?
Yeah.
We all know
Yeah.
it's broken. People say, I'd love to come in legally, but your system takes too long.
Mhm.
And there have been fits and starts over the years, but typically it falls to, here's the politics again. Politically, it's not a popular issue,
Yeah.
not a good issue to run on. Well, you need to fix problems.
Mhm.
And so you can be working on other things, but you need to dig in and push to get the policy across the finish line to fix it. With a state hat on at the state legislature, we're looking at a whole host of things, including the role of the National Guard
Mhm.
and how Connecticut can ensure that they don't participate with or assist ICE in any way. We can continue to expand the legislation we've already passed here in the state in terms of protecting people at courthouses, trying to get ICE to not wear masks, although I believe that just got
Just
challenged in
got challenged. Yeah.
California.
And yeah.
And so we're looking to do a whole host of things to make people safer.
How about technology? I heard
Oh, yes.
well, I was involved in a conversation today about Flock, and that is the where police are collecting license plates,
Yes.
and while there is no relationship between that particular part of their program or industry, they do serve ICE in other areas. And so I mean, if that
Yep.
information is there.
Well, and I've also been told this is an interesting one where municipalities are informing us at the state level and getting to travel these 27 towns, I've learned that it wasn't entirely clear to municipalities when they put up the flock cameras who owned the data.
Wow.
And
Wow,
so ICE
that's
might
big.
actually be getting the data not from the municipality, but
Yeah.
from the company
Uh-huh.
that has the data from the town. And
Yeah.
so we can step in, the state can step in and limit who can access that data. And I do believe that conversation is taking place as well.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of the technology. I mean, when Google came out, I thought it was great. You
Yeah.
can get this software, you can do this, you can make, especially as a teacher, you can kind of play
Yeah.
around and everything else. And you remember their motto was when they started do no evil. I think that was their motto. And they had to make money, and they have certainly made lots of
Yeah.
money, but they've made money by going circumventing the laws
Mhm.
and gathering up people's personal information.
Yes.
I mean, they, they didn't do that in a conventional manner. So,
And there's another role for Congress.
yes,
Like, where have you been?
yeah.
How did we get to this place where there aren't protections in place and these companies are able to get all this data, sell it, share it?
Right.
And now it seems we've gotten so far where like a Mark Zuckerberg and others are the ones who are protected.
Yes, it's been flipped entirely.
Yeah.
And one of the old premises of journalism is to, comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
Yes.
I mean, where has that gone?
It's
and it's
I like that
tough.
saying. We don't have that right now.
We don't have that right now. We just don't have it right now. And
No.
everyone's covering themselves, and you got to make money and more money
Mhm.
than is even imaginable, and to be considered successful. And I don't think that's the definition of success.
No.
So, any other issues or policies right now that you would want to?
Yes,
point
and
out?
actually interesting. I'm going to build off what you just said, and then let me touch on housing because that's a big one. But campaign finance, and so I also am someone who makes long-term plans and short-term plans,
Okay.
and so the long-term plan overturned Citizens United. Obviously, we need something to happen with the Supreme Court in order to get there. But in the short term, I put out a platform that says, "Okay, corporation, okay, super PAC, you want to donate? We're going to tax that donation and use that revenue to create a fund
Oh.
similar to what we have here in Connecticut, where then people could use that fund to run for office."
Oh, wow.
Because truly, I think a large part of why we're at the place we're at is that money is buying our politicians. Like a very like low hanging fruit example is gun reform. There've been so many polls that illustrate that the American people want some type of gun reform. But the NRA donates to all these candidates
Mhm.
and we don't get anything across the finish line. But that's happening in so many different ways that we don't even see, like with private equity, again, with healthcare,
Mhm.
housing. And so to pivot into that policy, that's another issue that comes up all the time. Here in Connecticut, people are feeling the crunch of skyrocketing house prices, rental prices. And so one piece to me, and that's the other. So right, long term, short term, I'm
Mhm.
also, there's not just one thing that solves a problem typically.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, what are the different avenues? And one is private equity. So private equity is coming in, purchasing up homes, purchasing up apartments. And so we need to regulate that at the federal level. The other thing we could do, hearkening back to what you were speaking about when we used to tax corporations at 70 and 80%, we need to think through, okay, we need certain jobs in certain areas.
Mhm.
And so why don't we connect housing to those professions in terms of, hey, nurse, if you're going to work in this rural town
Oh, yeah.
for 3 to 5 years, we'll pay the down payment on your mortgage, we'll pay rent for a few months, we'll take off rent. So connecting it so that people can actually live where we need them to work.
Mhm. Just to note that the housing issue too, and people who are buying up properties. We have people in Bristol now who are from out of state and they're buying properties,
Yeah.
and they really are not good stewards of their property.
Yep.
Just this last snowstorm,
Oh.
We cleared our sidewalks here. This property, which is adjacent to ours, they waited until the snow stopped, and then it was almost impossible to move the snow. And when they did move the snow, they pushed it all back onto our sidewalk.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and so it's, and I'm not blaming the people who live in those places.
No.
It's always a partnership. It's a collaboration. Yes, you're the landlord or the person in charge of the property, but there are certain responsibilities to your
Yes.
tenants as well as
Yes.
the town and city that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do that, somehow you've got to make those people accountable.
Yes.
And you have to do that inside the town too.
Yeah.
But you're in town, and then you have other things that happen in town. You have people who are neighbors who will talk to each other.
Yes.
And that always doesn't turn out in the best fashion, but at least it's a start.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You might not talk to each other for a little while,
Yeah.
what happens. But at least you're there. You're going to be there, and you got to work things out.
Yes.
That's that local element again of dealing with people. So, how about exciting things you're looking forward to in this legislative session?
Sure. So this legislative session, being co-chair of the Human Services Committee, I'm looking, I don't know if it's exciting, but
I'm a geek though. I love this stuff. And I think the more people know about it, it's like, I'm so tired of we do a little program with the Boys and Girls Club, and it's terrific. It's a podcast. We're going to have kids interview elders in the community.
Is wonderful.
Which is wonderful. And I was talking to the kids today about where we're coming up with scripts. You have to have a script, even though what you're talking to people, you've got to know where you're starting and where you're going. And so we were talking. I said, "What do you think about school? Oh, it's boring. It's a drag, and it's all that kind of stuff." And it's almost like they're not even saying that, because I can hear them talk about things they're excited about.
Yeah.
But it's something they pick up in the ether that's around. You're not supposed to like school.
Yep.
You're not supposed to like certain things.
Yeah.
And if you do, well, then there's something wrong.
Well, then I will tell this, because I think it's fascinating.
So yes.
So Medicaid, a third of Connecticut residents receive their health care through Medicaid. And when we're talking about healthcare, I'm talking about folks in nursing homes. I'm talking about those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and then traditional healthcare. I think that we all think about our physical health, dental health, eye health. And Connecticut has some of the lowest rates, which means that's the amount we pay the providers to do the care. And so an example is like dental. The dental visit costs $120. We reimburse folks. We give them the rate is $30. Well, who takes that hit?
Yeah.
And it's the providers. And so that means that provider won't take as many folks who use Medicaid for their health care. So it's an access issue. But it's also a small business issue in that these are nonprofits, these are small doctors' offices. And so we are hurting them by not paying them what we owe them. And last year we put some money in, but we need to invest as a state in the Medicaid program. And at this point in our country's history, when the federal government is taking aim at Medicaid, where they haven't gone yet is the reimbursement structure. So for every 50 cents Connecticut pays into Medicaid, we get 50 cents matched. Some cases we put in 10 cents, we get 90 cents. And so until they change that, why wouldn't we be investing more to fix our system and get the biggest bang for our buck?
Yeah. I'm thinking of friends who are doctors, and they're in that kind of situation.
Yep.
I think about my old doctor who would spend 20 minutes with me, and my younger doctors now who are pleasant and personable, but they have a job to do, and part of the job is to move it along.
Yep.
To move it along. Yeah. So that is something that that is significant for people to understand the bigger picture.
Yes.
And see how you fix it is not by clicking your fingers or anything like that, but it takes a lot of work, which also, I mean, we are kind of winding down here. Yeah, we're winding down, but small business and corporations, we have people who are business people, and I do not see corporations as small businesses.
No.
And I don't see small businesses as corporations, but they are in business. But I do see that somehow there's got to be ways to support small businesses. And I have no answers. I just know that it's an issue. I know it's one of those things where people line up on one side or the other
Yep.
because they conflate those business, and there's different kinds of business, local
Yes.
business. So again, that's something that maybe
Well,
you
it
can
ties
address before, as we
s-
wrap up.
yeah, to bring it back to the beginning, that really ties into this conversation about politics versus policy, because sometimes it's an easy political win to just pass a policy that makes you either look like you're pro business or that you are saying, hey, stop taking advantage of folks. But the policy piece is you really need to get into the weeds, because not every business is made the same.
Mhm.
And so you want to ensure a good one is housing. I have conversations with realtors and with landlords, because someone who owns a 2-family, 3-family home isn't the person I'm talking about that is a private equity firm coming in from another state.
Different things entirely.
And so
Yeah.
we need to tailor policies.
So that's thoughtful. So as we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to cover that we hadn't touched on?
I'll just make my plug. You can go to voteforjillian.com to learn more about my campaign. And I'm just happy we're having a primary process here in the state, because I think we need people to be engaged and to realize that there's not just one way of being a U.S. representative.
Great. Well, Jillian, thank you for coming
Thank you
out.
for having me.
Yes, and driving up our narrow driveway with the
My
snow piled up on both
pleasure.
sides. This is Dave Fortier with Talking Bristol. I just wanted to mention a few things. We have a big wrestling match tomorrow night that we're covering.
That's exciting.
That is very exciting, and that's the Bristol Eastern Bristol Central match, and that we will be live streaming that. We have our, and then that's taking the place of the Avenue with Aaron Lopez, and that will pick up again in 2 weeks. And I will be back with Talking Bristol either this coming week, or we may be going to a bi-weekly schedule. We'll let you know how that goes. So once again, thank you, Jillian.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in and watching Talking Bristol.